You've slap-chopped your way to a nearly completed army, but there's one model left that you want to be bigger, badder, and maybe even actually good. Okay, bigger and badder we can't do, but good we can handle. The problem is, you have no idea how to get there. Well, luckily, there is a secret for unlocking amazing character models, and all you need is this right here. Hey, it's Lyla, and I'm working towards becoming a full-time mini painting YouTuber. So if you like what I do, want to get better, or join an amazing community, then go support me over on Patreon. So what is this secret? It's simple. Type in the name of your miniature into Instagram, find an amazing model, and then steal it. This stealing has been going on for hundreds of years, but for some reason isn't really done in miniature painting. Luckily, the ability to steal what you see online isn't really all that hard, and you can even practice the skill without painting at all. I'm taking my inspiration from NRM Paint on Instagram. He has a fantastic understanding of light and shadow, and that's what we're going to try to mimic today. I'm painting a random Kit Bash Space Marine, so I am choosing a Space Marine with a similar pose to mine. If you can't find your exact model, find one that's close. You might be thinking, Lyla, are you really going to steal another miniature painter's work? And the answer is, for the sake of learning, yes. While I highly recommend that you should all learn the principles of light and shadow, let's be honest, you're not going to do that, are you? You want to improve your skill as fast as possible, and in reality, you don't need to understand these rules of light. You just need to be able to mimic them. And the more you copy this technique, the better you're going to get at painting light anyway. With that being said, be sure to tag your reference on social media, or better yet, go support them on Patreon, Ko-Fi, you get the idea. Okay, let's do this. 1. First, we need to break the model down into more digestible pieces. Starting with the armor or even just the leg of this model is too large of a scope. Instead, we're going to focus on each individual panel of armor. We're going to start with the toe box, right? That's what that is called? Two. I'm breaking down the colors within the toe box into 3 general categories. Highlights, or the brightest areas. Shadows, the darkest areas. And midtones, basically everything else. Identifying your highlights, shadows, and midtones, combined with other steps I talk about in this video, can be done anywhere at any time and will help improve your painting faster than just simply painting. 3. Mix your 3 colors on your palette. You don't need to use the exact same colors as your reference, but choose ones that match the lightness and darkness of your reference photo. 4. With your areas identified in Paint Mix, it's time to stop and really look at your model. And I mean, really look at your model. Consider the size, shape, and placement of each area, how it fits within the panel and on the miniature overall. To help up your game even more, let's talk about this week's sponsor, Redgrass Games, and their Everlasting Wet Palette, Volume 2. A wet palette is one of the first things that I recommend to any new painter, and I have sworn by the Redgrass Games Everlasting Wet Palette for years. So when they released a new version that has an even tighter seal, is 20% larger, and comes with reusable membranes, I knew I found one of my new favorite wet palettes. It comes with attachments for mixing paint and storing washes, and the reusable membranes can be washed and reused up to 4 times. Plus, the glass palette fits inside perfectly. Get your Everlasting Wet Palette Volume 2 today by following the link in my description box. On the toe box, we can see shadow wraps around the vertical areas of the toe box and across the top. The midtone takes up a small amount of the toe part of the toe box, while the highlight is barely visible on top of the midtone. Congratulations, you just learned how to paint Space Marine feet. And while Space Marine feet are riveting, let's go on to something a little more interesting.
The next step is to analyze what you are painting, and this is where learning really begins. Here at the top of the foot, we can see shadow, midtone, highlight, then mirrored down the other side. And all of them are about even in size. On the shin, we see something similar. Midtone, shadow, midtone, highlight, and back again.
And this is where things start to get interesting. This alternating pattern between
Shadow, midtone, and highlight
is seen over and over across this miniature. We see it on the arm, the front of the leg, the back plate, honestly, everywhere. And here on the leg, we can see that this pattern lines up down each panel.
The secret is really all about analyzing. What patterns can you see in the work you are copying? What is the logic behind why the artist painted this way? Asking yourself these questions is the best way to improve while copying other people's work.
And just like that, bam! You can now paint reflective Space Marine armor as well as setting yourself up with the groundwork of how to paint NMM. From here, I'm going to mix an in-between color between my shadow and midtones and highlights, and paint that right in between my sections. Then, once that's dry, I'll glaze until the layers disappear. Honestly, I painted it like this to best illustrate the sectioning of our 3 categories, not because this is the best way to paint it. So paint it however seems easiest to you. Wait, is that really it? Well, yeah. Once you memorize this pattern, you'll begin to see it everywhere. And instead of needing to paint armor one panel at a time, you'll be able to look at the leg as a whole and paint the whole leg all at once. This is why copying might seem like you're cheating, but as long as you're thinking through what you're copying, you're going to learn it all anyway. Okay, but you're a beginner and having a hard time painting all of these gradients on this model. Totally fair. You can create a simpler reflective pattern by simply focusing on one single gradient from a shadow to highlight instead of multiple. Just study your model and focus on the largest or most central gradient on each panel. One last snag. What if the areas on your model aren't cylindrical like the arms and legs? A general rule of thumb is that every layer of your paint will follow the general shape of the element, just a little bit smaller as you increase your layers. Here, when we look at the knee pad, we can see that our midtone and highlight are both spherical, just like the knee. If stealing miniatures seems overwhelming, then you should go watch this video where I talk about the illusion that is social media. If you like what I do, comment, subscribe, go join me on Patreon. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time.